these people were very clear about what they wanted. They wanted to wrest power back from corporations and put it in the hands of the citizenry. Everything emanates from corporate power, whether it is imperial war, whether it is a for-profit healthcare system, whether it is the looting of the U.S. Treasury and the largest transference of wealth upwards, whether it is the curtailment of civil liberties, whether it's electoral reform, it all goes back to corporate power. And the elites and the pundits kept saying, what are your demands, what are your demands, what are your demands? Well, as Crane Brinton points out in Anatomy of a Revolution, when you challenge a power structure, when you create a revolutionary movement, you always make a demand that the power elite can never hear because it would mean their own dissolution. And that was fundamental. And the occupiers were crystal clear about it. And it was the outside world that couldn't hear it because it would mean their obliteration. Well, you have to shatter the hegemony of the corporate state. And we're not going to do it through the formal mechanisms of power. It's going to become through mass movements that discredit this narrow oligarchic elite. You know, it's what the Spanish did, surrounding the parliament, calling them to resign. And what does the Spanish state do? It arrests people for treason. I mean, that's really the game we're playing. And we have to expose the political theater for what it is, the system of legalized bribery for what it is, and the fact that power has been wrested from our hands and has to be returned. I'm not against capitalism. I'm against corporate capitalism. Corporate capitalism is very different from penny capitalism or regional capitalism because it's supranational. It has no loyalty to the nation state. In this sense, corporate capitalism, in the language of patriotism, is treasonous. They're traitors. They will destroy the host state for profit. And you talk to penny capitalists, the farmers in the farm town in upstate New York where I grew up, and they've been destroyed. You talk to small business owners, and they've been destroyed. I'm not an enemy of penny capitalism. I'm not an enemy of regional capitalism, as long as regulated and controlled heavily and taxed. I am a deep enemy of corporate capitalism, which is destroying the country and finally destroying the planet. Well, you know, we are going to have a backlash because the elites have not responded rationally to what's happening. Indeed, they just cut unemployment benefits for hundreds of thousands of American citizens. That's their response. Now, that backlash in America could come as a form of proto-fascism. Through the Christian right, through the Tea Party, they do what proto-fascist movements do. They celebrate the gun culture, the language of violence. They take a legitimate rage, a legitimate sense of betrayal, and they funnel it towards the vulnerable. Undocumented workers, Muslims, homosexuals, intellectuals, liberals, feminists, you know, they, like all fascist movements, have a long list of people. Hey, we could very well go that way. The undercurrent of violence in America runs very, very, very deep. I'm working very hard to keep our resistance nonviolent, but we're never going to be backed by the Koch brothers and others, and they are. And the longer the political paralysis continues, the more the extremes are in power. But we're not going to have the resources. And we could go that way. It could be very ugly. They will put their resources behind these violent proto-fascist organizations. I mean, this is what happened when business owners finally decided to fund the Nazi Party. I'm not, you know, I think history has pointed out that the elites are very good at creating goon squads, militias, death squads. And I covered the war in El Salvador. That's how it works. So if we think it's going to be a cakewalk into paradise, then we don't know anything about how societies break down. I don't take anything back. I think that legitimate criticism is the use of the word cancer, because the state uses those sort of, you know, the idea of human groups as disease, and, you know, so, you know, I might have picked another word, but otherwise I stand behind every single argument in that story. I think I nailed them. I think I got who they are.
Okay, I was watching the debate between you and, I forget the current thing.
Brian, right.
And at one point, there's a question that came up that was bringing up one of your articles where you tied in radical radical forces as parasites. And the next phrase is Black Panther Party. I'm not sure if at the time you didn't remember.
You know, there were a series of mischaracterizations of what I had written, and I thought that was unfair. I think that if you want to start nailing me for what I wrote, you better get up and read what I didn't have a binder full of all my columns. And so I really wasn't able to respond, and I didn't really want to get into, you know, no, I didn't say this, yes, but I thought that was, I thought Brian was pretty respectful, actually, but I thought that if I had one complaint, it was that he repeatedly mischaracterized my positions on things that I had said, I don't think I ever called the Black Panthers parasites. I think that I talked about how radical groups were parasitic in the sense that they arose out of grassroots popular movements. That's not the same thing as calling the Panthers parasites.